Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
Hello, and welcome to today's course showcase discussion, the Digital Leadership Suite, with our presenters Lisa Fagan and Kara Halter. My name is Kim Heyer. I'm with GP Strategies, and I'm happy to be your host for today's session. So before we get started, I'm excited to introduce you to today's presenters. As a Vice President of GP Strategies, Lisa Fagan focuses on providing clients with leadership development, employee engagement, coaching, and mentoring solutions. She has built and deployed growth strategies, managed global and national sales teams, designed and executed alliance programs, and as a Senior Director of Global Learning Innovation for GP Strategies, Kara Halter consults on digital transformation, creation of innovation, learning experiences, and learner-centric design principles. She's a recognized expert, having presented for many professional organizations on GP Strategies podcast series. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the presenters.
So hopefully we will give you a lot more perspective on what GP really means by digital throughout the rest of this presentation. But before we really start talking about what it means to us, I wanted to briefly give a couple of quick hits on why digital, like why should organizations really be thinking about bringing digital into their leadership training? And I think it's interesting when I talk to clients, which Lisa and I talk to clients every day about introducing digital from a leadership development perspective. I think because it is so focused on soft skills and human interactions and how we interact with other people, it's hard to sometimes imagine what that looks like in a digital format. So we frequently hear that, no, that's just not going to work. It has to be in person. It has to at least be virtually instructor-led. We've got to have those face-to-face or voice-to-voice interactions in order for digital or for leadership training to really be impactful and effective. And hopefully what you'll learn in the next little bit is that that's not really true. And we're actually seeing a lot of advantages to doing leadership training in a digital way. And what you see on this slide are just a couple of the reasons why. The biggest ones being that it is scalable and much faster to roll out. If you have a large organization and you have a lot of leaders that you want to train and you want to do it quickly, digital absolutely makes sense. We tend to plan on about 8 to 10 weeks to stand up a new program, and the reason for that is actually the last bullet point that's on the slide. We really want to partner with you in a way that we can customize the experience to you. We can support your change management strategy. We can support what you're going to do from a rollout perspective. But once you get through that initial stand-up stage, it suddenly becomes much more scalable and much more rapid on the rollout side of the coin. So as a quick example, we were involved with a client a year or so ago where we trained 900 store managers all the way across the country in 3 months. And I think that would have been nearly impossible in a traditional classroom model. So that scalable and rapid, I think, is absolutely the easiest and most obvious impact of why digital can be really advantageous. The other bullet points here around the innovative, effective, relevant, personalized, all those little buzzwords, I think digital provides a really unique way to address those ideas. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them now, because I think in the next 3 or 4 slides, I'll really share how we have taken those ideas and brought them to life in a digital format. So yeah, if you want to go to our next slide. Yep, thank you. So this is when GP Strategy says digital, this is really our core philosophy around what we mean by that. And you just heard me sort of talking about what some of the challenges or the pushbacks are that we get when we say digital to clients. And often it's about scale, right? It's about, well, how do you really address a very large audience when a classroom only supports 20 or maybe 30 people at a time? But we also hear concerns about human connection and engagement, and how do you really grab learners' attention in a digital type of format? So we took that to heart, and our digital program really tries to address those challenges in a creative and innovative way. So first up is cohort-based. So this is not e-learning. It is not a one-way street where you are just clicking next through an e-learning course. You get to the end and pass an assessment and move on. That one-way communication of a traditional e-learning, web-based training course is not at all what we're talking about. This is still a human-based experience, and it is with a cohort. So our learners are still going to be going through the experience together, but in larger groups. So as opposed to maybe that 20, 30 people in a classroom, most of our cohorts are more like 75 to 100, and that can scale more or less around that, but kind of our sweet spot is in that 75 to 100. Our cohorts are also supported by both a coach and a moderator. So it is still a facilitated experience, which I think is really important. It's still tapping into that human connection aspect of leadership training that is so important. The next space there is space, actually. The next one is spaced. And our programs are time released. You actually heard Lisa say earlier, semi-synchronous. So we use that term because it is time release. So on a weekly basis, typically, more content is being released. So we're keeping our learners on a journey together and kind of moving them through the experience in some kind of a synchronous way. But there's still asynchronous components that are possible and capable with digital. So there are still components that are self-directed, that are really driven by the learner for them to consume when they want to, how they want to, and in that digital format. So the semi-synchronous idea sort of works for us. That's the phrase we've grabbed a hold of. And the advantage to that is it really gives people time to learn and reflect on what they learned and then apply that learning before the next topic comes up. And so for those of you, I'm a learning geek, so apologies if I reference a few different things throughout this course or throughout this session, but the AGES model is one that I particularly like. And the S in the AGES model is spacing. I think we have found that is a strategy that works really well for adults and especially busy adults. And we found that in many ways, doing leadership training in this way, where you're only learning about one thing at a time before you move on to the next one and having that opportunity to practice it, it's shown to be actually a lot stickier than the traditional classroom model where you may learn all of that content in just 1 or 2 days. The other learning geek side of me that comes out here is that when you space the learning out and you're asking learners to leave the digital platform, go out into the real world and try it, and then come back, you see that we're actually collecting kind of level 3, if you're thinking Kirkpatrick or a lot of the different assessment models that are out there. We're already starting to see that level 3 feedback appearing before you even get to the end of the experience and get your final level 1 smile sheet. So there's a lot of real big advantages to it being a spaced experience. Social, of course, is super important. Social is what makes this truly a human experience. And our courses encourage that peer-to-peer interaction, to learn from each other, to share their experiences with each other, to get feedback from each other, but also to get feedback from an expert. And that you'll see is happening both on the platform and in live events. So digital is not 100% digital in this case. We do incorporate opportunities to bring people together in that live fashion. That social interaction is also happening as a full cohort, so those 75 to 100 people, but also we try to build in opportunities for discussions and sharing in small groups as well. So really tapping into social in a variety of ways. And then our last core piece here is micro. So our micro philosophy is that our content is ruthlessly relevant, and each little chunk of content is designed to be completed in about 3 to 5 minutes. There might be some exceptions for some activities that might take you a little longer to think about, but it's really designed to be micro learning that allows you to come in and out anytime, anywhere, at your own pace, whether that's 10 minutes in a day or an hour in a day. You can kind of choose how you want to consume the content. And we give learners a lot of autonomy in that. And you'll actually see that most of our completion requirements don't even require learners to click every single thing in the course. We really ask them to complete more like 60 to 80% of it, so they can kind of pick and choose what's most relevant to them. And it's not, an all or nothing kind of gig. It's also gamified, which you may hear a little bit more about, but all of those micro-learning components are attached to points and badges and a leaderboard to try to provide a little more of that motivation and drive through the program. So collectively, this is our design, right? We're really trying to support adult learning, really trying to engage our learners, and trying to build some good learning habits and opportunities to really make an impact on the business. So with that, the other thing that I think makes really our products and the way that you partner with us unique is the things that you see here. So this slide is sort of a mix of how we've designed our programs to be holistic and learner-centric. So meaning we try to think about a lot more than just the content that we're presenting. We're really trying to take the full learning and learner experience into account. But we also want to think about how we partner with our clients to meet their needs. So everything you see on here sort of falls into one or the other of those categories. And I'll try to click through these pretty quickly. But branding, I think, is an easy one. It needs to look and feel like you. Contextualization, we really don't want our products to be fully off the shelf. We really want to customize them to include your content, your ideas, stories from your leaders. Measurement, always important, often forgotten. So we have pre-built into our programs a pretty strong measurement plan that looks at data on a weekly basis, but also on that sort of summative and comparative way from beginning to end. And because our learning journeys are journeys and not just a one-time event, we've got a lot more possibilities there in terms of the types of data that we can look at and the way that we can really measure growth. Marcom, we really believe this is a cornerstone in how we get and keep learners' attention and also engage not just our learners, but their managers. So every one of our programs has a very robust communication plan built in. Kind of already mentioned this, but live events, our digital programs are not 100% digital. So every program you'll see has at least 4 live events built into it by default. Some of them have a few more. And we actually find that many of our clients tend to add more live events, which we happily support. And this is often one of the components of the programs that learners say they love the most, because it really gives them that opportunity to talk to each other and to network and to meet and get to interact with learners across the organization that they may not get to do in other capacities. And then user generated. So this connects back to our value of social, but I also like to think about this from a content perspective as leaving negative space in the journey that really allows learners to reflect and bring their own context and their own meaning to the content. So we build that in via discussions and missions and activities that we're really asking learners to bring their own organizationally specific content to share with everybody else. And then the last one is our coaches. And I really think this is a critical part of our success. Our coaches are leadership experts. Many of them are certified executive coaches, and they're in the platform every single day, supporting our learners and facilitating, the live events and really just bringing the content to life for our learners by answering their questions and getting them to think deeper about what they're learning. So collectively, we really feel that we've got a strong design idea and a really strong partnership model to create these programs into something that meets your needs. So with that, back over to you to talk about what those 3 programs are that we have.
Sure. All right. Happy to dive in. So in today's suite for GP Strategies, we've got 3 primary programs, Leadership Essentials, Leadership Evolution, and Leadership Acceleration, that target different levels of leaders in the organization. Being mindful of time here, because I know we're going to go deeper into each of these. I won't spend a whole lot of time here, but just know that Leadership Essentials was the very first program that we built. It was built at the request of a client who wanted to focus on building up the skills of frontline leaders in the organization. So that program has been launched. It was the first one we launched, and it has continued to be updated based on input from clients. We then launched Leadership Acceleration, which is the other end of kind of the hierarchy of leaders in the organization. It targets more senior leaders in the organization. has more narrow topics, a narrower list of topics, I should say, and it's aimed at providing them with more advanced skills for leadership. And then just as of today, we are officially launching Leadership Evolution. All three of these programs have followed the methodology that Kara was just talking about, but have unique designs in that they have to speak to those target audiences. They have to be relatable to those target audiences, not only in terms of content, but just in terms of how they experience the content and how what their journey looks like. So we'll say more about that in the next couple slides. So Kara's going to share with you what Leadership Essentials looks like in a moment, but I have an announcement to make before I hand it back over to her. So we're happy to say that we're far enough along in development now that coming very soon, we're also going to be adding to this suite of programs by launching a Future Leaders program. So one of the things our market is telling us is that we don't just want to think about people that are in role as leaders. We need to upskill people that we believe in the future could be either aspiring leaders or high potential leaders, but future leaders for the business. So we're designing a program specifically aimed at that target audience, and it will be coming very soon to you. So now handing back over to you, Kara, to talk about Leadership Essentials.
Thank you, Lisa. And as Lisa just said, this is our core leadership program. It was the first one we introduced. It's still our most popular program. And we are literally training thousands of learners a year now through this content. So if you want to go ahead and click to the next slide. This is just high level. What are we trying to accomplish with Leadership Essentials? Like, why is this something that you would want? And as Lisa said, it's designed for our frontline leaders, but I will say that as you read through these bullet points, these objectives really could apply to a whole variety of audiences. And we do have clients that choose to use this program across all leadership levels, and even for some of those high potential individual contributors. So I think it's a really good, just level setting, core foundational, hit the basic check boxes of what every leader needs to know, sort of regardless of what your current position is or what your past experience has been. So I think you'll see that in the topics on the next slide. It really is also about not just teaching skills, but about developing a culture of leadership within your organization, building and developing that network amongst your leaders, and more importantly, really making an impact on your business and the engagement of the people in the program, but also the people they are leading. So those are themes throughout of the networking aspect, but also focusing on engagement. And how do you really make an impact on the business by engaging your people? Okay, so this is what the Leadership Essentials journey looks like. So you can see there's 8 core topics there, probably nothing surprising. And you can see a lot of those also connect back to those competencies and those topics that Lisa mentioned from the training industry data. And that's what we found is that most of the time, these topics are very easily mapped to what a client's core leadership competencies are. And they do seem to be aligning with what industry research and trends say. This is typically a 9-ish week experience. So that experience kicks off with a live kickoff event, and then a short little module that is about getting started. It's really about familiarizing the learners with the experience, what the expectations are. They have an opportunity to introduce themselves to each other, to meet the moderator, to meet the coach, just level setting on what the experience will be. And you'll see, so that we don't have to say this 2 more times, you'll see that is a common approach across all of our programs. And then each week, new content is released. So each of those topics that you see here pop out on a weekly basis. And each of those topics is about 60 to 90 minutes worth of content and activities. Although we do always say you get out of it what you put into it. And we do find that learners often spend more time than that because of the social aspect of the experience. Each topic, then, we sort of talk about why is it important? What's in it for you? How does this impact the organization? And then we introduce a simple model or a framework to support the skill building and the behavior change that goes along with that skill. And then we try to provide opportunities for reflection and practice and application. And each module sort of ends with that commitment to action or to sharing, what your aha moment was or how you're going to apply this in your day-to-day life. As you're going through the 8 different topics, so each of those sort of follow that same trend, But we have a couple more opportunities where we bring the full cohort together. And that's where you see those little chat bubbles in there. We refer to those as cohort conversations. So that is bringing the whole cohort together to talk about the content that's been covered in the previous weeks. And we tend to put the learners into small breakout groups in those. So it's not 80 people trying to talk to each other. It's more like 5 people trying to talk to each other, to really hear from each other, to support each other's learning, to give each other feedback, to, talk about the challenges that they're having, and then still be able to bring everybody back together for that debrief with the coach. And you'll see that's another common experience component that you'll see in all the rest of our journeys. Throughout the journey, there are opportunities for learners to ask questions, to get feedback from the coach. Our coach actually posts a new video every single week, kind of sharing their insights on what they're seeing from the cohort and from the learners. And then we wrap it all up with a program wrap-up event. And that is really about celebrating our success and encouraging our learners to continue their journey. We never want the learning to stop at the end of the 8 or 9 weeks. We really want them to continue. So we try to celebrate that at the end and really push them in that direction. And you'll see there's a note at the bottom here that there are additional modules available. I will say this is probably our most flexible program. There's lots of ways to adapt what this journey can look like by adding modules, removing modules, sort of swapping them around a bit, or adjusting the cadence or adding live events, like I mentioned earlier. And we're so obviously super happy to partner with you to make that meet your needs. So that's Leadership Essentials. So over to you, Lisa, about leadership evolution.
All right. And I'm just taking a quick look at the time here and feeling the need to press pretty quickly ahead.
A few minutes behind, yeah.
Yeah, just a few minutes. All right. So Leadership Evolution, like I said, it's our latest release. And you'll see here, just in terms of the objectives for the program, that it's meant to be aimed at the middle manager in the organization and helping them to bring not only their self-understanding of what their leadership challenges are, and addressing those in the learning experience, but also to think about how they can help develop the employees that they're responsible for, and also think about a broader the implications of their role in a broader context within the organization. So let me take you straight to the journey, and this will make a lot more sense to you. So when you look at the journey here, this is an 11 to 13 week experience, depending on the coaching. And we do a lot on the front end before you ever come into the topics in the experience, because we want to do that grounding. I'd say there's 3 things that really make this design unique. One is we employ a 360, where you can get feedback from about 8 to 10 of your colleagues as leaders. And you use that to sort of unearth or suss out where you might have some development areas as a leader, some things that you want to work on. So the 360 is certainly unique. The identification of a challenge that you want to work on through the work experience is also a unique design element in Leadership Evolution. And then lastly, the coaching. You get a lot of one-on-one coaching in this journey. That accompanies, each individual's participation week on week. So the way it lays out is you do the pre-program part 1 and 2, which is basically the 360 and one-on-one coaching and the identification of the challenge. Then we then move into looking at 4 lenses of leadership, which for us, we've defined those as leading self. So how do you show up? We'll cover things like mindsets and leading self. Then we move into, so first part is discussing, what is leading self? What does that look like? What does good look like? Really defining it. And then part 2 is about application. So you learn the skills in part 1, you apply the skills in part 2, and then there is a coaching conversation. So you see that cadence throughout. Once we move into looking at the 4 levels of leaders, that's the flow of the program. So skill building, application, coaching. So then leading others, also part 1, looking at, how do you impact others as a leader in the business, getting those skill set, doing the application, coaching conversation. Leading teams begins to look at now, how do you work collectively with groups in the organization to advance work and to collaborate, skill building, application, coaching, and then enterprise begins to look at across the organization, how can you influence the performance of the overall business? So that is the general flow. And again, the heavy emphasis on coaching here for purposes of embedding the skills and really helping you to understand where you've got gaps in your leadership, and how those gaps can be filled through the new skills that you're learning in the program. So that is the leadership evolution in a nutshell. And I'm going to hand back over to you to cover leadership acceleration, Kara.
Absolutely. So this is our third program, so for that most senior level audience. And go ahead and click to the next slide with the objectives there. I think, this is really geared towards leaders who already have several years of experience, but they're now in more of a strategic position. So they may be leading other leaders, they may be leading whole functions, they may be sort of working their way up to, director and the executive level type positions. And they're really cementing who they are as a leader, how they can impact broader company initiatives, through things like strategic thinking and planning, through influencing people, and also through developing their team, like really developing a talent pipeline. So you'll see that these objectives are a little bit more sophisticated, if you will, and they're really focused more on those, not foundational skills, more bigger picture thinking kinds of activities. So go ahead and show what this journey looks like. So you'll see this journey is split into two parts. So part one is really about who you are as a leader. And you can see it's your role, emotional intelligence, and authentic communication. So those skills all build up to thinking about what are the changes you're trying to make at this point in your career and within your organization. How do your mindset impact those things? What are your values? What are your life experiences, and how are those impacting who you are as a leader? And I think actually kind of a fun little fact, authenticity is a very hot topic right now. And in fact, I think it was the most looked up word according to Merriam-Webster last year, in terms of words to sort of define as a definition. And so that really is a lot of what our part one is about, is who are you as an authentic leader and how do you show up, in that way? Part one concludes with a video assignment. So we think that's kind of a unique aspect to this particular program, and that we ask you to put yourself on camera and to sort of show who you are as that authentic leader. So we give you a scenario, we ask you to sort of do a little role playing and introduce yourself to as if you had a new team that you were getting ready to lead. And there's opportunities to get feedback from both your peers on that, as well as personalized feedback from your coach. And you'll see there's a cohort conversation in there, just like you've seen in our other programs. And then we shift into part two, and part two is really about how you show up as a leader to others. So that's strategic thinking, influencing, and developing a talent pipeline. So these are more strategic skills, and they're really, trying to put a strong emphasis as well on reflection and application, and how you're applying typical leadership skills in a strategic way to make an impact on business results. There's a really strong emphasis there on understanding the enterprise mindset and how what you're doing influences everything else around you. And again, ends with a cohort conversation to bring everybody together and talk about it. But the unique part at the end of this program here is we have introduced what we call learning circles. So right before the end of the program, we bring small groups together, so typically of about 8 people, and it is a facilitated session for an hour with the coach, really focused on networking and peer feedback opportunities. So we're asking them, after having spent the last 10 weeks or so together, to really think about how this is going to impact their career, how this is going to impact the business challenges that they're currently focused on, the initiatives that are in flight, and to talk about those with their network of leaders that they have now met, and get some feedback from each other on that. So that's how we finish. And then, of course, we wrap up with that same kind of celebration event. All right, Lisa, last couple things here.
Last couple things, and I'm going to be bright and brief on here because I do see some questions in the chat, so I want to be able to come over to those in the time we have left. But Kara talked about results, and we do really focus on results in the design of all of these programs, and so just wanted to share a few samples of the kind of feedback and results that we're seeing as a result of what we're doing in this space. So we do see a higher satisfaction level with the participants in our programs, as well as completion rates, which is, really important. So, we're seeing in some of the sessions that we ran 97% completion rate, and, just the higher rating from a satisfaction perspective. We also are honored and pleased to share that we won a silver award from Brandon Hall for the unique design and innovative design of these programs. And just recently also, it was announced by Training Industry that we were named in the top 20 leadership providers in the industry. Because you're all going to receive a copy of the deck, I won't spend a tremendous amount of time here on the case study.
Yeah.
You'll be able to read the whole case study. And of course, you are welcome to ask us any questions about it or any of the other experiences we've had. But would love for you to please take a look at the case study to see the results of this particular client. They are one of the clients that were integral to the design of 3 programs for different levels of leaders, because they asked us to build a suite of programs that would enable them to train their leaders in the flow of work. And that was sort of the genesis of a lot of the work we've done in this space. So please take a look at that when you have a moment. And then lastly, let me invite you to participate in a couple of the open sessions that we have, which are basically condensed, shortened versions of the programs that Kara and I have been talking to you about here during this time. We've got some dates here. If you're able to participate, please just let us know your participation. Your seats at these different sessions as a webinar participant is free. So one of the things that you get from us. And if these dates are not workable for you, then please just let us know and we'll be happy to schedule a walkthrough for you and others within your organization. All right, so we have now come to the end of our time together. I would love to have any questions that you have for us and be able to answer those for you.
Okay, great, Lisa. Thank you. I do see a couple of questions, and I know we are at time. So if it works for you, please stay on, and we'll get to answer your question. So I have a question here that says, how do your clients manage ongoing commitment to these programs when people are so busy, dropouts, missing sessions? Is interested in any tips and techniques?
Yeah, I can take that one. I think we actually have really high success rates with these programs. The majority of our clients are at 90% or higher of completion rates, which we're pretty proud of. But I think a lot of that comes back to our proactively thinking about change management and deployment strategy upfront. And then during the program, the communication plan that I talked about is really, really important. So we tend to have what we refer to as both a push and a pull communication strategy. So every time a new topic comes out, there's an email that goes out and other forms of communication that will say, this, look, there's new content available. Here's what we're learning this week. Here's what you need to do. Sort of the pushing the requirements is an aspect of it. But then at the end of each week, we try to change up the flavor of that communication to be more about pulling them back into the experience. So those communications are more focused on, if you haven't been in the platform this week, here's what you're missing. And our moderators are really good about going in and curating those responses to find really insightful little nuggets that people have shared and quoting them and recognizing them in those email communications. Or even like posting challenges to say, our current average score on the leaderboard is 500. Can we get to 600 by Monday morning? So there's lots of different ways that we have tapped into those motivational strategies in our communication plan. And then we're also just constantly monitoring and adjusting and adapting that plan as needed based on what's actually happening in the organization, in the platform, in the experience, in partnership with our client and with our coach and moderator.
Thank you, Kara. Okay, so I have one quick question was, how long is the acceleration program?
It is typically 11 weeks. So there's 6 core topics that are 1 week each. And then there's like a week on the beginning. And then sort of the capstone activities are at the end of each part are 2 weeks. So collectively, you end up with about 11 weeks.
Mm-hmm. Another question was, how do you manage a cohort that's 75 to 100 people? And how many coaches do you have?
Yeah, great question. So most of our experiences do only have one coach, and we found that that actually works really well. But we do things like, so for example, the Leadership Evolution product that Lisa talked about, those live events that are the application focused part 2 of each topic are really, really important. And we really want to give everybody the opportunity to participate in those. So if we have 80 people in that whole cohort, we will actually run each of those live events 4 times so that each of those experiences are really in groups of 20. So we do things like that to sort of manage the scale. So you're still putting a large group of people through it at the same time, but there's opportunities to sort of break it down and do that in a different way. We also will occasionally, for things like the one-on-one coaching, we may bring a second coach in just to support that aspect of the program, but there would still be one coach really assigned to the overall experience and following them throughout the whole journey.
Great. Someone just, do you have any more information on the platform side, the tech specs, etc.?
Yeah, sorry, Lisa, I'm just taking all of them from you.
You're doing great.
Yeah, so another great question. So the platform that all of these experiences are hosted on is called Intrepid. So it is a third party. It is not our own platform, but we have a really great relationship with Intrepid and have for years. So it's a platform that I really strongly believe in. So feel free, it's Intrepid by VitalSource if you want to kind of look up and see what that is. But it's a platform that's really focused around those collaborative social learning aspects that we've talked about that are so important to us, and it does a really beautiful job of managing it all for us. We have found it to be an incredibly flexible platform from a technical spec side. It works on every computer, every browser, mobile, desktop, tablet, whatever all the different devices are. It's very responsive in that way. And we have been doing this in a global capacity for many years now. So we have found that it will work, across many regional and country borders as well. So yeah, absolutely. Feel free to look more at that platform.
Okay, I just want to just note the time and I say that I think we have answered all of our questions.
Right.
And
if I may, Kim, just interject quickly as we wrap
sorry.
up. The one thing we didn't say, Kara, is in terms of time commitment in a week. We talk about 11-week program, 13-week program, but it does vary a little bit program to program. But in terms of content, you're talking about 60 to 90 minutes roughly of content.
Yeah, some of the programs probably push closer to 2, but yeah, you're in that 1 to 2 hour per week range for pretty much all of our programs.
Yeah. So just wanted to note that for folks, if you were trying to process how much time commitment your folks would need during the time frame of the program. So thank you, Kim. Please back over to you for a wrap up.
No, I just want to thank both of you for the great discussion, and a big thank you to everybody for joining us today. At the end of the session, we do ask that you take a minute to fill out our survey, and there is a question in there regarding if you want to attend the open sessions coming up or would like a demo, so please be sure to answer those. We hope you'll join us again for another one of our upcoming webinars. Visit GP Strategies website for our future sessions, and I wish everyone on a call a wonderful and productive rest of your day. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks, Kim. Bye, Kara. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.